Hi, I'm Jane Reardon with the Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Professionalism. Welcome to Reimagining Law. In this series, we're exploring with legal professionals how to better deliver legal services to benefit the society, the people we serve. Today, I'm really pleased to have join with me Blake Morant. Blake is former Dean of the George Washington University School of Law, presently serving as Distinguished Professor of Law at the University of California, Irvine School of Law. Welcome to the show, Blake.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's great to be with you.
So we've talked before, and you are well known for your writing about the importance of civility. Yet we are living in uncivil times, both politically and in the legal arena. Our political rhetoric seems to be getting worse. What can we do to reverse this trend?
Well, I think we just need to heighten awareness of the fact that the rhetoric, the tone, and all of those variety of different things that are categorizing how we are expressing ourselves to each other, we need to heighten awareness of that. And at every single juncture, individuals who are involved or individuals who hear it should highlight the fact that things have changed and that the rhetoric now is more divisive, it's more adversarial, and that it's counterproductive to the true exchange of ideas.
Lawyers in particular have an obligation. It's set forth in our rules of professional conduct, the preamble there. And it talks about how lawyers should be respectful of those in the legal system. Why should lawyers embrace civility? What's in it for them? What's in it for their clients?
Well, I think it really dates back to the historic function of lawyers in society. Many people don't understand that our profession is one that dates back hundreds of years. In fact, 500 to 600 years ago, there were attorneys who were ecclesiastically trained, but then instead of becoming clerics, decided to practice the trade of law. They had embedded in them this sense of ethics and propriety. And I think most importantly, this idea of giving back to society, doing everything that they could to uplift others, because usually the clients that they represented were rich enough to hire them, but most were not, and that society needed the talents that they had. That very thing really defined what a truly professional lawyer was, not only giving to their clients, but also figuring out a way to help society generally. And so as a result of that, that's come down over the hundreds of years. Unfortunately, the business model that we have today that really governs our profession has overshadowed a lot of that. But note that I said overshadowed. It has not obliterated it, and we need to bring more attention to it.
You've been teaching in law schools and around law students for a number of years. What have you observed about the civility of discourse in law schools and amongst law students over the last number of years?
Well, thank you so much for asking that. And remember, I was a practicing lawyer for a number of years before I became an academic. So I see this from a very interesting vantage point, what it was like when I was a practicing attorney and now that I'm an academic. But precisely to your question, remember that within particular venues or in particular, as I say, spheres of professional behavior, it's going to be reflective of the general society that we're in. So if what you're seeing on the traditional, as I call it, general society, it's going to be reflected within those spheres of professional workings that we have. So in the almost 30 years that I've been an academic now, I have noticed that the rhetoric, the way that we engage each other has been sharper than it was 30 years ago when I came in. The respect level that people had for each other was a bit different. And I think that's reflective of what we're seeing in society. The idea that expressing oneself honestly and abrasively is somehow today considered much more of an asset. It is considered much more of being honest. But what has been lacking in this is this respect notion. this idea that if you really want to get your idea across, then you really do have to be respectful of the individuals that you're speaking with. And fortunately, within the educational sphere that I'm in, professors have the obligation, and many of them do, to express that at the very beginning so the students understand that's an important part of professionalism.
So are there rules of engagement that are expressly given to students during law school? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked it that way because, we're so oriented toward individuals having a certain guideline of behavior. I remember when I was a child, we didn't need those guidelines. I mean, precisely speaking, my mother taught me these are the ways that you are respectful to people and how you are to approach them and talk to them. I'm not saying that that's not taught now in homes. I don't know that that's the case, but I know it's not manifested as much in the behaviors that we see. So as a result, we now have to codify to a certain extent and express those rules ahead of time. And this is not to suggest that legal academics, law schools are now putting forward actual expressed, written down rules of behavior, although some schools are doing that. But I do think there's a focus on reminding students that within a particular professional sphere, there's an expectation of a behavior that means you're going to speak respectfully, that you're going to listen to others, that we can disagree and have the free flow of ideas, but the way that you express yourself is going to be an important part of judging what kind of professional you will be.
That's great. And do you do that in your class?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I do a lot of writings on Forbes and other platforms about the importance of civility. My God, if I didn't do it in my own class, I'd almost be a hypocrite.
How did the students respond?
Well, it's interesting. I've never had a student rebel against it or talk about it. The most responses I get are, my goodness, you're doing this, but I noticed that other people are not doing it. And so I haven't received anything negative on it. I think what I tell students in order to orient them toward this more positively is that it will benefit them once they are out in the working world. See, when you link behavior to the individual ambitions of individuals, it reinforces the importance of those things. And I think for students, when I talk about it in that way, then they really get it. And then as a result of that, they appreciate it.
And have you found that when students do get out in the world, those lessons are reinforced? Do they report back to you that, yeah, this has been helpful in my law firm or my legal internship or some other workplace where they're actually starting to practice law?
That's a terrific question. And I will be very honest with you. Often I don't. I only hear about it if it negatively affects them. So let's say we have a student who was out working and they didn't observe the tenets of civility and professionalism that I try to reinforce. And some kind of repercussion has happened. I've had a student who said, I was in court, I wasn't respectful of the court reporter. The judge got wind of it, and the judge really chewed me out in courtroom. Now, I'll hear it that way, but I never hear from them, oh, thank goodness you reinforced that. I do that every day, and as a result, I'm doing very well. I never hear about that way, which tells us if you're observing that, then you're not having a problem in communicating and relating to others. If you're not doing it, then you're going to hear something negative and see the repercussions of it. I just want the students to understand that they need to do that in order not to have those repercussions.
Blake, you've written a lot about civility and whether there comes a point in time or there's certain behaviors where it's beyond the pale, right? And what I'd like you to address is how does that compare with our current cancel culture? And by that, I mean, if someone hears offensive opinions or is encountered by offensive behavior, retaliates by punishing or intimidating, as opposed to trying to engage in civil discourse. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'd be happy to. I must be honest, I haven't written about cancel culture that much when I've talked about civility. It's come up more as a more recent phenomenon in the public discourse sphere. I will simply say I start with the proposition we live in a free society. I mean, one of the reasons that we're having this conversation is that people feel free to express themselves. They quote the First Amendment, which gives you full breadth. What we're trying to do is to reinforce to individuals that yes, you have the right to speak, but at the same time, if you really want to engage, if you really want to persuade, it's very important for individuals to keep in mind those elements of civility that will make your speech much more approachable and respectful. Now, with this cancel culture, it's an idea that sort of suggests that individuals who are disapproving of a certain amount of speech from a particular source will then advocate for that source having some type of, if not punishment, some kind of repercussion that goes beyond just the immediate speech itself. There are countless number of examples of that. I will just go back to my original premise. We live in a free society. Individuals have that right to do that. I always meet that with more speech. I think if we try to regulate those kinds of things, then I think we run into problems. I also want to add that sometimes cancel culture, if we're using it as a general phrase to highlight repugnant speech, like speech that's racist, sexist, or advocates violence. And as a result of that, individuals would like to highlight individuals promoting that in their businesses. I have no problem with that. I do believe that there's certain types of speech because of either the foundational repugnant nature of it or how it's countercultural in terms of societal norms that can implicate. We need to highlight that. And if there are various kinds of individuals with financial power that are able to advance those particular kind of theories, we need to heighten the public awareness of this. Now, that doesn't mean the public is going to listen to that. You know, if they want to boycott, if they want, this is a free society, they can. If not, they won't. I think we have to really focus on the fact that as we are dealing with this, more information is better than less. If there are individuals who are saying cancel culture is actually counterproductive to the free exchange of ideas, express that, say that, so that when individuals are deciding whether to cancel that particular kind of expression, they have a full range of information to make the decision whether to do that or not.
That's a great point. So often, a lot of these behaviors are knee-jerk emotional reactions
Oh, yeah.
without full understanding and exchange of ideas.
Well, can I add to that a little bit, Jane? Because you've hit the nail on the head. Oftentimes, the inflection point is very emotional, and people react on emotion. What we have to do is get them to see the whole picture. And so if there are those who feel that individuals are being stifled in their expression because they're being boycotted or whatever, put the full amount of information out there so that individuals know and can judge for themselves whether or not that kind of boycott is appropriate.
And I think you'd agree, that lawyers are uniquely skilled at being able to put information out there. And I hope that they will listen to your wise words and react accordingly, or act accordingly, I should say.
Well, let me say, if I might, let me say, I agree with you completely. I mean, as I've said earlier in this interview, lawyers have a historic role in doing that. Unfortunately, we're not known for it. So what needs to happen is a heightened awareness on the part of our profession in making sure we do that, because by our own conduct, we're signaling to the general populace about how people are to behave. And you can see that in popular culture. There are these television shows that portray lawyers We have individuals who comment on that all the time, and in some ways imitate those individuals. We have a particular moral obligation to keep that in mind as we go forward.
I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for joining me, Blake Morant. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And thank you all for joining and watching this video. Please like and share this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on new episodes. Information on how to stay connected with us is in the notes. Thanks for watching and be well.